Thank you for having me. Like Louise said, I'm going to talk about portals, platforms, and what I look at and see as the next step in the evolution of job sites. And so just to give you a little bit of background about me, I was in Paris last month, and we won the startup competition for talent acquisition at Unleash. And this is my colleague Alexander and Mark from Unleash holding a little plaque. I have a bad habit, which is I start new companies kind of at whim. As I was listening to Anna give her talk, I started to think about new names of new companies to start. 5 of these are ongoing right now. As point of background, I was a co-founder at job.com and ran user acquisition at Beyond, where I read thousands and thousands of customer emails that kind of shape a lot about what I think. So a little bit about what we do, just to give you context of where I'm coming from in this conversation. So companies like our client, Teletech, gigantic contact center company, 6 continents, they post jobs, they put them in their ATS. We take those jobs, we add apply information to support a native apply, like in this case, which is on Indeed, that asks custom screening questions. It's not just like that one-click apply. We capture that apply data and information, and we then inject it back into their ATS in real time. This is a huge step forward in terms of how applications happen. We can support any view. We have an open source spec, so that if you have a job board and you want to host the application and integrate it with ATSs like Taleo Enterprise or the whole Taleo and Oracle family, SuccessFactors, iCIMS, et cetera, we do that. Why do we do it? It's kind of because of this. So in the break there, I was having a little bit of a conversation about like candidate experience, and although Anna says it doesn't exist, it really does exist from a user experience perspective. And if you've ever followed any of the clicks off of your job site, you've probably encountered this little wall, which is at the end of the click, click, click through the corporate career site. The candidate's asked to log in, which is really stupid. It leads to massive conversion rate drops, huge friction. And they have to figure out how to actually sign up rather than sign in if they haven't been on that ATS before. Appcast did a study, 95% of apply clicks don't convert. And if a marketer looked at that and said 95% non-conversion rate, they would no longer have a job. So how does this kind of fit into this talk, right? So when I think about like where we are as a job board industry and kind of the transactional point that Derek was making earlier, which I think is pretty brilliant way to describe it. There's been this evolution of portals, aggregators, and platforms, and that's not just in our industry, that's in a lot of industries. So like portals like Excite were really, really popular, top 3 domain in the US. Back about 22 years ago, while it exists, it's not really a thing anymore. That gave way to aggregators, and aggregators taking lots of stuff, like in our business, obviously, we could all say it together, Indeed shaped that place. And that then evolved into platforms. So what makes a platform? Everything stays on the site. Facebook as a platform, it's kind of like, it's not really revolutionary. Things like chat happened on ISPs and like AOL and so forth back in the 90s. But at the end of the day, it's really shaped the way that people kind of think about user experience. So whether it's portals that kind of go back in time like Lycos, Excite, and really I'll take Monster just because of its history, gave way to aggregators. So whether it was in news or shopping or travel or careers, and they've given way to platforms. So like Amazon Prime, all the way down to LinkedIn InMail and Hired, they're keeping the candidate on their sites, right? And so that's really an important and pivotal point. They retain the entire user experience. So what does that look like? With respect to Amazon, so Amazon started out as an e-commerce business, transactional, books, but then in this case, this is a product page for a water bottle that's being sold on Amazon by 25 other vendors other than Amazon. Amazon brings in content and or products from many, many different sources, allows them to transact on Amazon, and that accounts for almost 70% of their sales in the Amazon.com platform. Here's an example of like a very transactional type of company, United Airlines, offering up the ability for you to book a hotel room when you're also on their site booking the airline. So rather than having the person link off, you can actually transact through United, leveraging their experience. What's this look like on a job platform? So Stack Overflow is a Q&A site. They've given some talks at JobGates in the past, and their experience is 100% on Stack Overflow. They have the apply happen on Stack Overflow. You can see what the status is on Stack Overflow. You're going to get references done on Stack Overflow. Hired, which is really popular within the IT community, the entire experience all the way through to offer happens on Hired. And so you get analytics companies like Smashfly that go and talk to corporates and say, let's look at how your spend compares when you compare Indeed, which takes the Indeed user from Indeed to Smashfly to look at the job, to a CRM sign up, to the ATS to look at the job again, to the ATS login button, and then they say, look, that doesn't work really well, but if you go and you spend your money on Hired, where the entire experience happens on Hired, it's a very high return on ad spend. And so this is transforming the way people want to buy. And so what are these older companies doing, like Indeed and Monster? Well, what they're doing is they're evolving, and they're becoming platforms, whether it's through the video content that gets created so the experience is more unique and more engaging, or hosting an application experience. There are a lot of different things. And so what you can take away from this talk is 3 different things that I think that you should consider doing inside your business like tomorrow, right? So number 1 is related to communication and supporting that. Number 2 is around delivering comprehensive tools and making sure that your entire experience is, for the candidate, can take place 100% on your site so that they don't have to go off your site to learn and understand what they should be doing next. And the third is an integrated user experience. So again, keeping the candidate on your website. So what's this look like? So two-way messaging. So Twilio is a communication platform. They have SendGrid for email. Twilio supports SMS, and that can support a two-way dialogue between the recruiters on your platform and the candidates. So who's doing this? ZipRecruiter is doing this in the US, right? They're delivering a two-way communication so that the candidate can see if the employer is online and ready to take a message. The message goes from the candidate to the employer, and goes from the employer back to the candidate, and it's happening through the Zip interface. So the user doesn't leave ZipRecruiter. Comprehensive information. So people want to do research. One of the primary things about research is reviews. So whether it's Kununu or Glassdoor or Indeed or a smaller company like CareerBliss or your company, you guys can take reviews. It's a really simple thing to do. You just ask the seeker who just uploaded their CV, you look at what their last company is, and you ask them what they think about that company, and you start to collect reviews. And then you can surface that back to the consumers and candidates that are on your website, because their expectation, which is driven by Amazon, I give a different talk called Amazonification of job boards, which is really about mirroring what Amazon does, but the reality is the Amazon experience is one where I want everything on this page that has to do with whether or not I should buy this product. That's like other customers, and that's research, and that's independent reviews of what the product's like. You can do the same thing. Obviously, Glassdoor has made a huge business about it, and it's really, really helpful to help a person engage and actually finish the application. Add native apply. So this is like code. Again, we've got an open source version of this, but you could look at any one of the many numbers of companies that are out there adding this type of functionality, whether it's Seek, ATSI that Stepstone has been pushing, whether it's a solution like ours. Facebook has this, so we support TripAdvisor. And by way of background, our customers are large enterprise companies that tend to hire multinationally that look at recruiting like a marketer does, right? They see and understand the loss and the friction, and they're trying to figure out how to solve it. So TripAdvisor, we manage all their jobs on Facebook. It happens natively, all their questions, and it gets fed right into their ATS so that the recruiter, when they see that candidate come in, they can start working on them immediately. And the ATS gets to excel at what the ATS is really good at, which is helping the recruiter optimize their experience of bringing that person through the hiring funnel. We are using the platform and what they're really good at, which is already having the candidate's information or the person's information, and then being able to repurpose that so the candidate doesn't have to re-enter it. On Indeed, Indeed Apply, supports dynamic questions, multiple pages, and this stuff is relatively straightforward for developers to do and not that terribly difficult. It can support things like custom questions and e-signatures. So I want to leave you with a couple of really clear points and what I think about with respect to kind of the job board business in general. So when you sit down with your salespeople, you probably think about things like how many job postings, how many subscriptions, how many resume database access programs did you sell? And the thing is, while that may be the line item of what you sell, that's not what your customer is buying. Your customer has a problem, which is they need to make a hire, and you need to control the hiring process. So that discussion or description of like the candidate experience going from Indeed to a corporate career site, to a CRM sign up, to the ATS sign up, that's, in that case, the job site has lost control of whether or not they're actually delivering the product that the customer is actually buying, right? Which is, do I get candidates that I can hire? Second is, offer the tools to make that happen. So everything from the reviews to the messaging, whether it's the video programs, I think that's a really great one. Offer the tools to make it so that you actually are helping from a consultative perspective that client make the hires that they need inside their company. Make it end-to-end, right? So 20 plus years ago, the application process started and ended on the job site. And in the UK, it's much more common than it is in the US. The US has moved almost entirely to applicant tracking systems of one form or another. But you need to take that back and take control and make sure that you don't let it go. Earlier this week, I was in a different conference, and I heard this statement, so I'm stealing it from him, and I think it's brilliant as it's related to this, which is think big, which is design what you want ultimately, but start small. What can you deliver in the next week or 2 weeks, in the next month or 2 months, and then just keep on iterating until you keep control of the whole process. And that's it. So thank you.
Thank you, Alex. That's great.